Page 61. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The two walked over to Saitama, and Tsukiko Masano, without a word, hoisted him up, glancing at his closed eyes. Let's go, we're running out of time. Masano, betraying no emotion, carried Saitama with one arm and headed toward the nearby sand dunes. In the direction the sand ninja had disappeared, a figure dropped to the ground, revealing a pair of watchful eyes. These sharp eyes were fixed on the slowly retreating Konoha ninja. Wind and sand swirled, briefly revealing the sand ninja's forehead protector. With the group slowed by injured members, Moonlight Masano couldn't move too fast. They walked like this for about half an hour, nearing the edge of sand ninja territory. Everything had gone smoothly so far, no pursuers, no ambushes, which struck Tsukiko Masano as odd. They weren't far from the sand ninja camp. You'd think the escaping ninja would have sent for reinforcements by now. Samu, feeling any better? Masano Tsukiko stopped. He was bearing most of the weight of the injured, which was taking its toll. To conserve his strength, he was taking frequent breaks. Much better, sensei, Samu said, letting go of Moonlight's arm. I can walk on my own now. Sensei, you focus on getting Saitama out of here, Samu said, glancing at the motionless Saitama, who was still slung over Tsukiko Masano's shoulder. Alright, just keep up, Moonlight Masano agreed. He knew Samu was injured, but they all needed to push through it as best they could. Focusing on Saitama, Tsukiko Masano felt a slight movement. He seemed to be waking up. Let's go, Moonlight Masano readjusted Saitama, securing him with one arm, his face betraying nothing. Whoosh. Whoosh, they moved quickly across the sand, the night providing the best cover. Saitama felt himself being carried through the darkness. The jolting, combined with the cold wind, was starting to clear his head. Ugh! Saitama coughed up blood, snapping awake as they moved. Saitama? Tsukiko Masano stopped when he saw Saitama's reaction, and Samu, struggling to keep up, stopped behind him, hands on his knees. Captain, where are we? The moment he was conscious, Saitama looked around, realizing they weren't where he'd last been fighting. Still in sand ninja territory. We're trying to get out of here, Tsukiko Masano said, setting Saitama down. Right. Saitama touched the wound on his shoulder. It was charred black from the lightning seal he'd used. It wasn't bleeding now, but it still throbbed. The kunai wound on his back was worse. He saw that Tsukiko Masano had given it a hasty bandage, but the jostling had soaked the bandage in blood. Get on my back, let's go, Moonlight Masano, after a quick look at Saitama's wound, told him to climb on. Now that Saitama was awake, it would be easier to carry him that way. Samu, stay close. As soon as Saitama was on his back, Masano took off, leaving Samu in their dust. The wind whipped past Saitama's ears. With him awake, they were moving faster, which was making it even harder for Samu to keep up. Even though Saitama was conscious, he was still weak. He couldn't muster any chakra. The poison he'd been hit with seemed to be suppressing it. Resting his head on Tsukiko Masano's back, Saitama tried to brace himself against the bumps so the wound wouldn't hurt so much. They still didn't run into any sand shinobi along the way. They made it safely out of sand ninja territory and hurried back toward Konoha land. Saitama was sitting in a tent. A few feet away sat a familiar face, Uchiha Lin. You're something else, kid. You've been on 2 missions since arriving at the front, and both times you had to be carried back. Lin's face was a mix of emotions. As a member of the Uchiha clan, she kept tabs on their descendants. It wasn't just because Saitama was a member of the Uchiha Guard, but also because he was one of the younger generation, perhaps even one of the most gifted. This mission was a little rough. My combat experience is still lacking compared to those veteran ninja, so I got caught off guard, Saitama said, noticing Lin's concern. If his body hadn't been strengthened and made more resistant to poison by thunder-type chakra during the mission, he might not have made it back. We also owe a debt to Orochimaru-sama. If he hadn't ordered the continuous attacks on Sand Ninja, they would have had time to send reinforcements to cut us off, Saitama added, changing the subject, a hint of fear in his eyes. That was Staff Officer Shikaku's idea. In the 2 days after your mission ended, to create a good retreat environment for you, he launched a feint attack to tie up Sand Shinobi's elite troops. Uchiha Lin smiled. She admired Shikaku, a ninja who relied on his intellect to survive in the ninja world. Saitama nodded and shifted to get more comfortable. This was the 3rd day since they'd returned. All members of Team Saitama had made it back to the Konoha camp safely. As soon as they arrived, Saitama received treatment. The poison in his system, which thankfully wasn't lethal, was quickly removed. He then received a more thorough bandaging. Out of the 20 or so who went out, only 7 had returned on time, according to Masano Moonlight. Besides the 3 of them, the other 4 were from a different squad. Although he'd expected losses, Saitama still felt a pang of sorrow. Maybe it was because he'd almost died himself, or maybe it was just because he was a ninja, too. Rest up for a few more days. Your injuries are serious, Uchiha Lin said, looking at the bandages wrapped around Saitama, her Sharingan calm. All right. This mission taught me a lot. Resting for a few days will help me process it all. Saitama smiled, placing his hands near his chest and gazing at his battle-worn hands. Good. Here are some ninjutsu scrolls from a few families. Take a look at them while you're recuperating. Uchiha Lin produced a scroll from behind her and tossed it to Saitama, then turned to leave. Thanks. Saitama watched Uchiha Lin depart, his spirits lifting. During this mission, Saitama had risked trying out some new ninjutsu, like his imitation of Chidori. Although it looked similar to Hatake Kakashi's jutsu, a dazzling ball of lightning, Saitama's version was weaker. He was just forcing thunder attribute chakra to gather and compress in his hand. In such a desperate situation, he couldn't fully control it, he just forced the technique to work, but if he had the time, Saitama could perfect his fake Chidori. There would be no need for hand seals, and the compression would be total. It only worked because Saitama's body had been energized by chakra so many times. Setting aside the scroll Uchiha Lin had given him, Saitama decided not to open it right away. He wasn't in a rush to learn new ninjutsu. Saitama lowered his head slightly, enduring the throbbing wound on his back, propping his chin up with his hand. As for Sharingan, he still had the double Tomo Sharingan he had when he had first awakened it. But his application of Sharingan was no longer so immature. He could use 100% of the functions of Sharingan and make the greatest contribution to the battle and ninjutsu. Saitama tapped his face, pondering the problem. He didn't know many ninjutsu, just a few fire-style techniques common in the Uchiha clan, and genjutsu, which he rarely used. His main attack was his saber technique. Thanks to the successful Thunderbolt Chakra mode, his speed and damage had increased significantly. Saitama analyzed his current situation and stopped thinking about it. His current path was to continue to refine his lightning chakra mode, striving to make his body stronger. He could slowly experiment with lightning attribute ninjutsu, drawing inspiration from his memories, but new ninjutsu wasn't a priority right now. After getting dressed and putting away the scroll, Saitama decided to go for a walk. He hadn't left the tent since returning because of the recent fighting with Sand Ninja. Casualties on both sides had risen sharply. The atmosphere in the camp was even more depressing than before. Saitama knew this battle wouldn't last much longer. When it reached its peak, the final clash would erupt. Konoha and Sandine were waiting, testing each other, and building up their strength. Chapter 25, I have a reason to become stronger. Page 62. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The war between Konoha and Sagakure raged on. Saitama watched the wounded being carted back and forth, day in and day out, and a grim realization settled in. These ninjas, with their complex lives, were being reduced to mere killing tools on the battlefield. Saitama neatly folded her quilt, gathered her gear, and prepared to leave the tent. After a long period of healing, her injuries had mostly recovered. It was time to rejoin the fight. pushing aside the tent flap, Saitama saw the eager faces of the ninja troops, a stark contrast to the war-weary numbness she'd witnessed before. Now, these Konoha ninjas, especially the rank and file, had a look of anticipation, an eagerness for the coming battle, that was unmistakable. Turning right out of the tent, Saitama headed towards the meeting point. Her outstanding performance and raw power had earned her a field promotion to Chunin by Naruto, a recognition of her contributions to the war effort. Many ninjas were promoted alongside her, but Saitama stood out. Besides being the youngest, her comrades claimed her strength rivaled that of a jonin. However, due to the lengthy jonin certification process, she hadn't received that promotion. Still, many in the know considered Saitama a jonin in all but name. Her destructive capabilities were undeniable. "Saitama, you made it," Sagi greeted her as she approached. "Yeah," Saitama replied with a small smile. It wasn't arrogance, just the difficulty in finding the right words. But she valued Sagi, a comrade forged in the crucible of war. "Heard about your promotion to Chunin, congrats." Sagi didn't take offense at Saitama's brevity. He knew she wasn't one for idle chatter, but her heart was in the right place. She was a reliable, if taciturn, ally. "Yeah, got the news a couple days ago," Saitama said. She wasn't wearing the Chunin combat uniform issued with the promotion. She preferred her own clothes, more comfortable and less restrictive. The uniform had pockets, sure, but it was too tight. "Looks like it won't be long before you're jonin material," Sagi said, scratching his head. Saitama looked into his eyes but remained silent. "The newly promoted Chunin are being organized into a unit for the next battle," Sagi said, changing the subject when he noticed Saitama's lack of enthusiasm. "We'll be fighting together." "Who's leading us?" Saitama asked, curious. There were at least 50 Chunin here, none with overwhelming strength. "It's Uchiha Hayashi, from your clan. I hear he's a favorite of the Uchiha elders, and he's strong as hell," Sagi said, looking upward as he tried to remember. "Hayashi?" Saitama was surprised. She'd underestimated him. She knew he was skilled, but hadn't expected him to be chosen to lead such a unit. Despite the number of ninjas gathered, the atmosphere was hushed. Even those who spoke kept their voices low, including Saitama and Sagi. "You know Hayashi?" "Right, you're both Uchiha," Suomu interjected, overhearing Saitama's mention of Hayashi. He was curious about the connection between the two. "Yeah," Saitama nodded, then turned her head towards an approaching figure, someone familiar. The clearing fell silent as the figure drew closer. Uchiha Hayashi strode forward, stopping in front of the assembled troops. His gaze swept over the ninjas, as if surveying his domain. "I'm your new captain. I hope we can rely on each other on the battlefield, for ourselves and for Konoha." He paused, delivering the well-worn phrase with a solemn expression. "Our mission is to attack the right flank. Let's not slack off. Move out. The battlefield needs us, and Konoha needs us." Hayashi commanded, gesturing for the ninjas to follow him. He led the way forward, setting the pace. Similar scenes were playing out across the Konoha camp, with jonin leading groups of Chunin to form assault units. The battlefield was about 5 miles from the camp, a sandy expanse. Orochimaru, Konoha's commanding officer, had taken up his position at the front lines, deterring Sand Village. He was accompanied by a cadre of elite Konoha ninjas and a strategy team including Shikahisa Nara. "Lord Orochimaru, here's the current situation in the designated main battle area for us and Sand Village," Nara Shikahisa said, pointing to a map laid out on the table. It depicted basic terrain features that only experts could decipher. Orochimaru stared at the map, his eyes unreadable. This battle could determine the course of the war. Sand Village has concentrated most of its forces and is preparing to engage. According to intelligence, Konoha is outnumbered, Shikahisa said, highlighting the critical issue. "I'll hold the main force on the front lines and try to gather elite units on my side," Orochimaru said, his voice a hoarse rasp. His golden, serpentine eyes narrowed, but he appeared unfazed by the pressure. Even Orochimaru-sama, one of the legendary Sannin, might be overwhelmed by so many powerful enemies, Akimichi Choza said from his seat near Shikahisa. As a member of the Ino-Shikacho trio, he was qualified to discuss strategy with Orochimaru. That's Konoha's current predicament, isn't it? Orochimaru said, unfazed, his gaze turning to Nara Shikahisa. Shikahisa stared grimly at the map, but said nothing. Konoha was fighting on multiple fronts, and Sand Village was just the first to attack. Its forces were too dispersed, and the situation was not promising. Then that's settled. The Jonin Guard will be on standby. We're taking the front, Orochimaru said, his eyes narrowed, a palpable aura of menace surrounding him. After holding back for so long, he was tired of Sand Village's timid approach. Yes. The other ninjas in the tent responded, continuing to plan the upcoming battle with a heavy heart. Saitama's unit followed the designated route, reaching their assigned position. They did their best to conceal themselves and waited for the signal to attack. Saitama, Hayashi's voice reached Saitama, who was lying near a pothole a few feet away, mostly hidden from view. Only half his head was visible as he spoke. What is it? Saitama asked, tilting her head slightly but otherwise staying still. Protect yourself. This is a battlefield, not a one-on-one fight, Hayashi said, his tone unusually serious. I know, Saitama replied, remaining alert. She understood the limits of individual strength on the battlefield, and the danger of being surrounded. This was the main battle zone. Orochimaru stood before the ninja troops, facing Sand Village's direction. Konoha's ninjas could see a dense mass of enemies in the yellow sand ahead. Orochimaru stared at the figures at the front of Sand Village's formation, particularly one who stood out from the rest. His eyes narrowed, and he licked his lips. Orochimaru, is this all the combat strength Konoha has left? A voice called out from the other side, causing a stir among the Konoha forces. Is the new Kazekage reduced to playing tricks? Orochimaru scoffed, responding dismissively. As the new Kazekage, I wonder if you're up to the task of carrying Sand Village's future on your shoulders. Orochimaru said, folding his arms, projecting an air of confidence. Humph. I don't know if Orochimaru, the Sannin, will be able to make any waves in this war. I'm looking forward to it. Raza, the new Kazekage, ignored Orochimaru's contempt, raised his right hand, and pointed towards the center of the battlefield. From Raza's perspective, Sand Village held the advantage. Konoha's decision to fight on multiple fronts was a strategic blunder. Page 63. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Boom. Orochimaru bit his right hand and formed a psychic mark. A huge plume of white smoke erupted, and a figure materialized on the Konoha battlefield. Meanwhile, fourth Kazekage, Raza, levitated from the sand, rising into mid-air in a flash. Roar! Manda emerged with a deafening roar. Even though the ninjas present had seen such massive summoned beasts before, its grotesque form still cast a shadow of fear over them. Shei Hidden Ninjas, victory is within reach. This is our chance to put Shei Hidden on the map. Raza announced, his voice carrying across the battlefield despite its moderate volume. Orochimaru, this time, you're gonna pay. Manda boomed, his menacing voice sending chills down the spines of the Konoha ninjas. The snake took in the battlefield and licked its chops. No problem, Orochimaru replied, his voice smooth and chilling. He stood on Manda's head, his black hair billowing in the wind, his gaze fixed on Raza, his pupils constricting. Attack! Shei Hidden charged forward, kicking up clouds of yellow sand. Konoha ninjas, protect our home. Think of your families, your loved ones. Stand your ground. We can't back down now. Orochimaru's cold words echoed in the minds of the Konoha ninjas as he remained on Manda's head. Roar! Attack! For Konoha, Konoha surged forward to meet them. War is a team sport, not a one-man show, unless you're a one-man army. The two sides were about to clash. From above, it was clear that Sand Hidden outnumbered Konoha by at least 2-1. Raza stood his ground on the sand, surrounded by his wind shadow guards. Orochimaru and Manda also held their position. He folded his hands, ignoring the battle below, knowing his target was the enemy Kazekage. After assessing the difference in strength, he released the Jonin guards around him. He was prepared to face a shadow and the shadow guards alone. "Take them away, Manda," Orochimaru ordered, and Manda began slithering to the right of Sand Hidden, where it would have ample room to maneuver without endangering allied forces. "I admire your courage, Orochimaru." Raza hadn't been Kazekage for long and was much younger than Orochimaru, so he didn't have the same respect for the older generation of ninja. He believed he could take on Orochimaru, especially with 4 Jonin guards at his side. Following Orochimaru's lead, Raza also shifted his position, controlling the sand to move to one side. Attack! Ninjutsu of all colors erupted as Konoha and Sand Hidden ninjas collided. Casualties were immediate, but no one paid attention to those who fell. All were driven by the urge to push forward, unleashing their ninjutsu. The battle became a chaotic whirlwind. The battlefield between Orochimaru and Raza remained untouched. On Orochimaru's side was a man and a snake, while on Raza's was a shadow accompanied by his retinue. With a powerful step, Manda, who had fought alongside Orochimaru for so long, charged at Raza, fangs bared, the snake's head lunging with thunderous force. Boom! A sand shield materialized in front of Raza, blocking Manda. Manda, biting into the sand, shook his head. Roar! Manda roared as Orochimaru landed near his waist, still not making a move. He simply frowned at the attempt. Chapter 26 I will also stand on a high place and overlook the world. Yellow sand filled the air, and the environment was making Manda irritable. Roar! Go to hell! Manda twisted, whipping his tail against the sand wall in front of Raza. Boom! The sand wall cracked, but Manda's tail continued its arc, aiming directly for Raza in midair. Boom! A wall of sand blocked the tail. Raza sneered, finding the summoned beast annoying but ultimately no match for him at the shadow level. Shine brat, you have angered Master Wan Shi. Of course, Wan Shi saw Luo Sha's sneer behind the sand, and his eyes turned red instantly. You must know that Wan Snake is an old generation who has been in the ninja world for so long. It does not allow anyone to challenge its own authority. Hulled by the wind, Wan Snake rushed straight over with his mouth slightly open and his eyes icy cold. Humph! Raza's expression didn't change. Such an environment should not be too favorable for him. With a wave of his hand, the chakras would circulate, and the sand on the ground would begin to condense. Shwa! Wan Snake arrived in front of Luo Sha quickly, the fangs in his mouth were exposed, and the venom began to brew. Boom! A huge fist made of sand hit Wan Shi's head, blasting it directly to the ground. Wan Shi's eyes were wide open, and he still couldn't believe it. Orochimaru standing behind Wan Shi was also a little surprised. He almost didn't react to Luo Sha's slap just now, so his vigilance deepened, and his contempt for Luo Sha disappeared long ago. Bah! Manda spat out a mouthful of sand. He had been slammed into the ground, and his open mouth had filled with sand. Orochimaru was intrigued, jumping off Manda as if settling in to watch the show. He knew that Manda was seriously ticked off. Manda was a different animal when angered. The irascible snake might not even care about Orochimaru. Hiss! Manda twisted, but this time he didn't attack rashly. Despite his burning rage, Orochimaru, now on the ground, looked at the sand ninja guard standing behind Raza and cruelly licked his lips. He wouldn't give the enemy a chance and would seize victory at once. Swoosh! Manda, seeing his opportunity, attacked again, faster this time, twisting his body on the sand in unpredictable patterns. The moment Manda lunged, Orochimaru made his move. He pushed off his right foot and darted toward the Jonin, determined to quickly eliminate Raza's backup. He wouldn't waste the opportunity Manda created. Boom! Manda deflected a massive ball of black sand with his tail, paused briefly, then resumed his assault on Raza. Ha! Raza, noting Manda's increased speed and power, showed little emotion. His hand motions continued, and balls of sand coalesced under his feet, forming various shapes to hurl at Manda. Orochimaru. Seeing Orochimaru close in on his ninja, Raza's eyes narrowed, and he raised his right hand toward Orochimaru. Magnetic release, placer gold spear. With a surge of chakra, a golden spear materialized in his hand, forged from placer gold extracted from the earth using his magnetic release. Swoosh! With a flick of his wrist, the spear hurtled towards Orochimaru at incredible speed. Shwa! Orochimaru seemed to have eyes in the back of his head, keenly aware of the battlefield. Anticipating Raza's strike, Orochimaru instinctively shifted to the right. Then, he leapt forward, dodging the spear and closing in on the sand ninja even faster. Humph! Orochimaru's hair whipped behind him as he ran, the purple tomo in his eyes reflecting his sinister smile. Shwa! Manda reached Raza, coiling and leaping in the air, his body curled again, and his tail flicked towards Luo Sha. The scales on the tail were shining brightly in the sun. This was the location of Chiyu's troops' ambush. It was located on the right side of the battlefield. When the fight started over there, Chiyu and others who were not far away naturally heard the sound. Page 64. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Did you hear that? Zwomu's voice was barely a whisper from Saitama's right hand. Just get ready, Saitama replied, not wanting to waste energy on pre-battle chatter. Their unit's mission was to launch a surprise attack on the Sand Ninja's right flank as soon as the battle kicked off, timing being crucial. Clutching his knife, Saitama narrowed his eyes, feeling a faint tremor underfoot, like giants colliding. Though he couldn't see the main fight, he could sense the intense chakra surges ahead. Move out. Uchiha Lin, who'd been lying in wait, tensed as soon as the main battle erupted. After counting to himself, he swung his arm forward and bolted from their hiding spot, heading toward the edge of the battlefield. The rest of the squad followed close behind. Let's go. Uchiha Lin was lightning fast, pulling ahead of the others, whoosh, a flash of light, and Saitama instantly outpaced Sagi. His smaller frame allowed him to weave through the throng, and in a heartbeat, he was right on Lin's heels. Uchiha Lin glanced back at Saitama, nodded, and kept running. For the village. Let's get them. The cries rang out. On the front lines, ninjas fought hand-to-hand like ordinary people in a bar brawl. Both sides had unloaded their ninjutsu at the initial clash, and now they were conserving chakra, resorting to close-quarters combat. Konoha lived up to its reputation as the strongest village. Though outnumbered by the Sand Ninja, they weren't backing down. In seconds, Saitama and his team had crossed hundreds of meters and reached the fray. Shunk. Saitama and Lin plunged into the battle simultaneously. They found themselves facing a group of Sand Ninja ganging up on a Konoha ninja. Bodies littered the ground, some in Konoha leaf uniforms, others in Sand Village garb. Hiss, drawing his blade, Saitama slashed with lightning speed, catching a Sand Ninja completely off guard. The ninja clutched his throat, bewildered by Saitama's sudden appearance. Without pausing, Saitama struck again, the blade flashing. The Sand Ninja, seeing his comrade fall, abandoned his Konoha target and raised his weapon to parry Saitama's blow. Crack. The Sand Ninja's kunai snapped instantly, and Saitama's blade continued its arc, slicing from chest to abdomen, leaving a long, cauterized gash as blood gushed out. Thwack. Uchiha Lin kicked another Sand Ninja squarely in the chest, sending him flying. Chunks of something unidentifiable spewed from his mouth as he crashed to the ground, convulsing. Let's go. Kill these Sand Village bastards. Uchiha Lin yelled to the rest of their squad who were just arriving. the Konoha ninja who'd been under siege stared at the Konoha headbands on Saitama and his team in disbelief, then nodded, and, despite his wounds, charged toward a nearby sand ninja, *shunk, Saitama ignored everything around him. Lightning crackled around him, boosting his speed to the next level as he cut through the chaos, claiming enemy lives with every strike. The lightning coating his blade was even brighter now, a result of his recent training, a variation of Sasuke's Chidori style. This electric-charged blade made Saitama a force of nature. No one could withstand his onslaught. The rest of the squad followed in Saitama's wake, tearing through the sand ninja lines like an arrow piercing its target, Saitama at the tip, *shunk. Shunk, Saitama tuned out the screams, focusing solely on slashing with his blade. His Sharingan eyes scanned the battlefield, analyzing every detail. Uchiha Lin was to his right, cutting down enemies just as ruthlessly, *clang, Saitama's blade met resistance, forcing him to halt. Ha! Saitama recognized his opponent, the sand ninja who had escaped from Tsukiko Masano. It's you. A grin tugged at the corner of his mouth as he put more force behind his blade, and the lightning crackled, *bang, Saitama's blade pushed the sand ninja backward. The lightning coursing through his weapon made the sand ninja's expression sour, *kick, Saitama pressed the attack before the sand ninja could recover. What's with this kid? He's gotten stronger again. The sand ninja scowled, the hand gripping his weapon trembling slightly from the shock of Saitama's lightning, *slice, Saitama's blade tore across the sand ninja's waist, leaving a bleeding gash. Tch. The sand ninja grunted and retreated quickly, giving up any thought of fighting Saitama. The Konoha kid was a monster. He got stronger every time they met. He was no match for Saitama now. Saitama wouldn't let him escape. The blade flashed, leaving a trail of crimson in its wake. The sand ninja narrowed his eyes, as if resigned to his fate. He grit his teeth and charged at Saitama, weapon raised, hoping to land at least one blow, *shunk, Saitama twisted, dodging the attack, then flipped in mid-air, driving his blade down with all his force, *thwack, the blade plunged into the back of the sand ninja's neck, the electric current severing his life force completely, using the momentum of his landing. Saitama yanked out his blade and scanned for new targets. It seemed that ordinary jonin were no longer a match for him. Scenes like this played out across the battlefield. The sand ninja had initially swarmed the Konoha forces, pushing them back, but then a wave of Konoha reinforcements had crashed into them. The element of surprise had thrown them off balance. But sand ninja weren't pushovers either. Their numerical advantage allowed them to regroup quickly and keep fighting. The battle raged, a chaotic mess. Off in the distance, Orochimaru's battle was on a whole other level. The mighty Manda was covered in wounds, all inflicted by the ninja facing him. The clash between Orochimaru and the fourth Kazekage went back and forth. Orochimaru's snakes surged against the Kazekage's sand, while the Kazekage's manipulated gold dust kept finding its way toward Orochimaru. Both fighters were unleashing their full power. An area around them remained untouched, as no one dared to get close to such a high-level conflict. Chapter 27, I Have a Dream. Saitama blocked out the battle in the distance, focusing entirely on this part of the battlefield. The lightning blade in his hand was the Grim Reaper's scythe, and with every swing, he claimed a life. Perhaps Saitama's performance was too impressive. More sand ninja began to converge on him, splitting up the Konoha forces. *clang, Saitama stared at the enemy holding a kunai in front of him. His half-covered face and the markings on his face suggested he was a higher rank. *shunk, the blade sliced through the air, kicking up sand as lightning bolts streaked across the ground, leaving black marks. *thwack, focusing chakra. Saitama lunged forward. He was confident in his abilities. Wind style, wind blade. The enemy made hand seals and released a stream of air mixed with invisible, razor-sharp blades. Saitama shifted his stance, sidestepping the attack. Thwack. Saitama frowned as one of his comrades screamed in pain. struck by the wind blade, that's how it was on the battlefield. You never knew where an attack might come from, so you had to stay alert, watching not just the enemies in front of you but everyone around you. Page 65. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Not wanting to waste another glance at the Konoha ninja who'd just been hit, Saitama's Sharingan swiveled, locking onto the enemy's movements, predicting his next step. Gripping his knife reverse style in his right hand, Saitama crouched low and darted forward. His footwork was a blur, his path completely unpredictable, at least to the enemy. His speed allowed him to loop around the enemy in a wide arc, instantly appearing at his side. Gotcha! The electrified blade flashed, reflecting in the sand ninja's surprised face. Bang! The head popped off and bounced on the sand. Saitama narrowed his eyes, suddenly alert, holding his knife across his chest, scanning the area. A wide circle had formed around him. Few sand ninja dared to approach. Looking at the severed head, Saitama was taken aback. He hadn't realized he was fighting a puppet. The head on the sand gaped open and shut, as if mocking Saitama's mistake. Not letting anger get the better of him, Saitama knew he couldn't panic, or he'd be ambushed. His eyes darted around, his stance defensive, ready to leap away from any attack. Hold up! The sand beneath his feet shifted. He wasn't surprised. Lightning crackled from Saitama's legs as he launched himself out of the way in a burst of speed. Bang! A crater appeared where he'd been standing, and from within it, a hand clawed upwards. Hiss! Lightning arced along the blade as Saitama, still airborne, slashed downwards. Hiss! The hand shattered. Another puppet. Saitama landed lightly, his scarlet eyes constantly searching. Heh, 2 for 2. A figure emerged from the sandy ground, half buried, his hands flailing as if controlling something. A Sand Village puppet master? Saitama muttered, raising his knife defensively. The kid's got some brains. The sand ninja rasped, his voice like something dredged from a sewer. Bang! Saitama didn't wait for him to finish. He surged forward, closing the distance. A puppet clamped down on his blade, but Saitama channeled more chakra, and electricity surged through it. Hiss! The black material of the puppet became a conductor, white smoke billowing out. Even the linen wrapping the puppet was charred and melted. Humph! The puppet master clearly hadn't expected that. He'd hoped to trap Saitama's blade, crippling his power. He'd underestimated the lightning. Bang! Saitama's expression didn't change. He kicked out with his right foot, sending the puppet flying, parts scattering across the ground. Tch. Seizing the opportunity, Saitama wrenched his blade free. Another strike, and the already damaged puppet would be completely useless. Kakaka. A bird-shaped puppet swooped in. Saitama's eyes narrowed, power gathering in his right hand, lightning sparking around him. To defeat a puppet master, you had to get to the puppet master himself, or you'd be fighting puppets forever. Weaving and dodging, the puppet master tried to keep his puppet between him and Saitama, but couldn't touch him. The puppet stopped dead in Saitama's path. Although it had wings, it couldn't fly high, only skimmed the surface. A weak gust of wind swirled beneath the puppet, kicking up a cloud of yellow sand. Realizing he couldn't match Saitama's speed, the puppet master gave up attacking and used the puppet as a shield. Boom! As the puppet's mouth opened slightly, Saitama predicted the trajectory, sidestepped, and broke away. A hail of senbon and kunai followed him, leaving craters in the sand. Saitama knew he had to wait for the puppet to reload. He slashed at the air in front of him, deflecting any kunai he couldn't dodge completely. He knew Sand Village puppet masters loved poison. He couldn't afford to get hit. His Sharingan spun wildly, not missing a single detail. When the puppet's mouth closed and its wings began to beat faster, Saitama knew it was time. Now. Chakra surged, a thin veil of lightning arcing across his body like armor, closing the distance in a flash. Saitama leaped onto the puppet's head. Push! Leaving a charred footprint, Saitama landed 2 yards away from the puppet master. His eyes narrowed, Sharingan spinning, pupils locked on the enemy. He'd wasted too much time on this fight. The puppet master smirked triumphantly, revealing a sneer. The puppet was behind Saitama, the puppet master in front, but Saitama felt a prickle of unease. A ninja's instincts were rarely wrong. He trusted his gut. He froze, then darted to the right. At that instant, the puppet behind him transformed. Crack. Whoosh. Page 66. You are listening at novelfull.audio. There was a gaping hole in the puppet's tail, spewing out a huge cloud of purple smoke that spread out in the sunlight, looking both alluring and sinister. Zzz. Anything that came into contact with the smoke began to corrode, even the sand turned to glass. Saitama narrowed his eyes, quickly stepping back to put distance between himself and the smoke. Huh? The puppeteer sounded surprised, clearly not expecting Saitama to back off from an attack when he was so close. The smoke rapidly approached the puppet master, who jumped away in the opposite direction of Saitama, as if he, too, was afraid of his own puppet's smoke. Schwing! Out of nowhere, Saitama's blade appeared beside the puppeteer, the arc of the swing flashing with deadly intent. What the hell? Panic seized the puppet master. He distinctly saw Saitama jumping the other way. How could he be right next to him? He turned his head to where Saitama had been, only to see another Saitama standing there. A shadow clone. When? Was it the instant the poison mist sprayed out? Doubt filled the puppet master's eyes. He seemed to understand everything the moment the blade grazed his neck. Hiss. The power of the lightning was terrifying as the strike cleanly decapitated the enemy, his head bouncing to the side. Before Saitama could even take a breath, he was under attack, whirling around in astonishment to see that the bird puppet was still functioning. Poof! Saitama dissolved into white smoke right in front of the puppet, leaving behind only a few senbon needles coated in black liquid. Damn it! The real Saitama, sensing that the puppet master wasn't dead the moment the puppet moved, charged toward the puppet that was close to his shadow clone, blade in hand. Sure enough, as the clone dissolved, the puppet paused for a split second, as if surprised that it had been tricked. The wings whirred, and the puppet reacted quickly, spraying a hail of hidden weapons at the approaching Saitama. But it was too late. Saitama was only meters away from the puppet now, a distance he could cover in a single bound. Crack! The blade slashed violently at the puppet's wings, hacking it into a wingless worm that fell to the ground. Buzz, star, the puppet counterattacked, dense holes opening in its body, revealing a cascade of hidden weapons ready to launch in an instant. Nice try, but you're done for. Saitama gritted his teeth and cranked up his chakra. The arc of lightning intensified, and the armor around his body became even more distinct. Wham! The blade crashed down on the puppet's body, tearing a huge gash into it, and the hidden weapons ceased their advance. A trickle of blood leaked from the puppet's wreckage. Saitama crouched atop the puppet, pulling his ninja blade free. A strand of blood remained, crackling as it was being cauterized by lightning, and slowly disappeared on the blade. Crack. Saitama jumped off the puppet, revealing a ninja half lying inside, now a lifeless corpse. From his forehead to his stomach, a massive rent had been torn, bisecting the man into two pieces like a pig on a slaughterhouse hook. Phew! Saitama took a deep breath, finding the battle to be a rush. It was only at the last moment that he realized the puppet master's body was hidden within the puppet. To be able to spray such a poisonous mist toward him without changing his expression, Saitama thought, not many can pull that off. From that slight hesitation when dodging the poisonous mist, Saitama realized that the controller couldn't be the main body. When the poisonous mist spread, Saitama made a clone, ready to test things out, but unexpectedly, he was right on the money. He started thinking about the puppet master's hiding place, and a thought struck him: the safest place is right under your nose. That bold guess drove him to act. And that's how the Sand Village puppeteer met his maker. Chapter 28, I'm a battlefield Valkyrie, cold and ruthless. Real men don't look at explosions, and Saitama wasn't about to look back at the Sand Ninja's sorry state. He gave the knife a few practice swings, then locked onto his next target. The puppet master he just took down must have been pretty high-ranking in the Sand Village ranks. A lot of sand ninjas were staring at Saitama in shock. They couldn't believe that the kid had taken out a jonin, but the fact was they'd lost one of their best. This battle is only a piece of the war, and Konoha isn't exactly sitting pretty. Saitama scanned the battlefield and saw a lot of guys who'd charged with him had already gone down in the chaos. Boom, Saitama kicked a huge enemy, following up with a quick slice to the back, revealing the bright red insides, and the electric current crackled all over him. Humph! A sand shinobi, who appeared out of nowhere, thought Saitama hadn't seen him and threw a volley of poison-coated shuriken, clang. Clang, lightning flashed as Saitama deflected the shuriken to his right. Saitama turned toward the guy who'd just ambushed him. He wasn't about to let a guy like that live. Thump, thump, thump. The enemy's face turned white when he saw Saitama coming for him. The sneak attack had backfired and drawn his ire. You don't want to come any closer. The sand ninja tried to act tough, but he was probably scared witless by Saitama's aura. He didn't have any of the ferocity he'd shown when sneaking up on Saitama. Saitama wore an expressionless face, deaf to the enemy's pleas, and rushed him, blade in hand, crack, the kunai broke, and the enemy was dispatched to the place they belonged. The yellow sand drank in another splash of blood. Saitama was like some space-based weapon raining down on this battlefield of mostly chunin and genin, a sure one-hit kill. Don't be fooled by the slow, inevitable fall of the dead. Saitama was scurrying around like a live wire. Ah! 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 Sand ninjas all around clutched at their throats, meeting their maker, and then were finished off by Konoha ninjas. The Konoha ninjas who were helped nodded to Saitama before joining other battle groups. This was a battle that was far from over. Thinking about that, Saitama glanced toward the far end of his vision, where Orochimaru and Raza were fighting. The sand whipping through the air blocked his view, but the ground shaking told him the fight was tough. He might be dominating here, but he wasn't strong enough to get involved there. This battle hinges on Orochimaru. If he wins, we're golden. If he loses, the army's screwed. As the general in charge, Orochimaru is the backbone of the entire team. Raza is different. Even if he's an enemy Kage, he's still a rising star. His reputation isn't close to Orochimaru, and Sand Village can write off Raza's defeat easier. Saitama thought as he fought. Saitama, move east. Leave this area for them. He kept cutting down Chunin and Genin, then heard Uchiha Lin's voice. The Jonin battlefield's over there. Our Konoha Jonin are getting swarmed and need backup. The voice rang out again, and Lin bolted east, where Chunin and Jonin were slowly gravitating. Lightning crackled, and arcs danced all over his body. Saitama remained in the most basic state of thunder chakra, covering himself in a layer of lightning to stimulate his cells and keep them primed. Page 67. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Thwack. His shoes kicked up yellow sand. He weaved through the crowd, and no sand ninja could withstand Saitama's onslaught. In seconds, all that was left were enemies moaning in pain. Kill them all. Finish off these sand ninja. Saitama's attack gave the Konoha ninja a breather. He left enemies on the ground, unable to fight. Ignoring the fallen sand ninja, Saitama pressed on. Many more sand ninja were around, but they met his eyes and backed away, unwilling to fight. Instead of chasing them, Saitama wanted to reach the Jonin battlefield Lin had mentioned. The Jonin battle was the key to winning this war. The other ninjas were just cannon fodder. The electric current on his blade and his pace didn't waver. The other ninjas knew not to mess with Saitama, so no one tried to stop him. This was a massive battlefield, far larger than Saitama imagined, with an extremely long battle line. Before he reached the Jonin battle, he heard an angry voice. Konoha ninja, this war belongs to us. Dream on, you sand-hiding bugs. Konoha will never lose this war. Enough talk, kill these sand village guys. Hurry, Orochimaru-sama needs our support, that the Konoha ninja scoffed, confident and filled with fighting spirit. Konoha wouldn't, lose this war. That was what Orochimaru had instilled in them, and what they believed. There were hundreds of sand ninja gathered, more than half were jonin, the rest were strong chunin. Konoha's numbers were half that, giving them a serious disadvantage. Clang! Konoha's skills were superior, but they couldn't handle the sand village's sheer numbers. Casualties were heavy. In the crowd, Saitama spotted someone familiar. He kept moving with the other ninjas. "Masano, you okay?" a gentle voice asked. A Moonlight Clan Jonin was talking to him. Masano Moonlight had used his teammates for cover and used the Moonlight Clan's sword skills to kill 2 Jonin-level enemies. But he had been pierced in the right shoulder in a desperate counterattack. Unable to use his dominant hand, Masano had to dodge. Lucky for me, the weapon wasn't poisoned. Masano, holding a knife in his left hand, dodged a sand ninja attack, and spoke to his clansmen. "Backup should be here soon, hold on." The Moonlight Clan ninja glanced at Saitama. They were far away, and his eyesight wasn't as good as Sharingan or Byakugan users, so he couldn't make him out. "Saitama, get ready, we're charging in, Konoha's ninja are surrounded." Uchiha Lin, her eyes activated, said to Saitama. "Right." Saitama nodded, and looked around at the ninjas who were gathering. Lightning release, go. Wind release, great breakthrough. Fire release, fireball jutsu. Earth release, earth dragon. Before they arrived, Konoha launched ninjutsu towards the sand village group. Looking for a death wish. Konoha trash. The sand village ninja didn't take the small number of Konoha ninja seriously. They couldn't believe these guys dared to attack first. The sand village side felt like Konoha didn't see them as a threat. Boom. Boom. Arg. Thud. The ninjutsu wasn't aimed at people. Konoha's ninja just wanted to break the sand village's encirclement so their own could get out or let others get in. It's support from the other battlefield. The Konoha ninja saw their approaching companions. Yeah. Uegwangjunya saw the lightning at the front and smiled. Swoosh. Swoosh. Saitama rushed through the opening, landing in Konoha's camp. The battle paused as both sides waited for the other to settle in. "You okay?" Saitama asked Masano, seeing his injury. "Humph, what do you think?" Masano flirted with him. Saitama didn't answer. He could see Masano was putting on a brave face. Boom. Boom. Konoha ninja fell, glaring at the sand ninja. "Is that all Konoha has?" A middle-aged ninja, likely the sand village leader, spoke. The Konoha ninja, including the reinforcements, numbered only 70, nowhere near sand village's numbers. "Sand village bastard, stop talking trash and come get some." Uegwangjunya cursed, his strength fading from the shoulder wound. Ha! The sand shinobi waved his hand, and the ninja charged with ninja tools. Hiss! Electric arcs flashed, catching the eyes of nearby Konoha ninja. Where had this genius come from? A jonin at that age? The chakra fluctuation made many think he was a jonin. Saitama wasn't famous enough to be known by the entire front line. Many may have heard of him, but they didn't know him by sight. Go. Kill. Konoha's ninja were low on chakra. Sand Village wanted a close-quarters fight, and they were happy to oblige. Kick. Saitama took the lead, fearless. He had enough chakra to maintain lightning chakra mode at all times. He wasn't worried about the enemy's fighting style. Page 68. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Black footprints stained the yellow sand as Saitama, his expression grim, gripped the electric-charged ninja sword. Heads up. The moment they clashed, Saitama slashed down a sand ninja wielding a sickle, leaving a bloody gash where the sword hit. The ninja tried to parry, but the attack was too powerful. This was a mismatch. Meanwhile, the cooperation among his own squad wasn't nearly as tight. Narrowing his eyes, Saitama dodged a huge blade at the last second, leaping back to create some space. The pressure was on. He wasn't just mowing down fodder anymore. He was facing elite Chunin and even Jonin working in perfect sync, pushing his Sharingan to its limit. Saitama scanned his surroundings, not daring to let his guard down. Chapter 29. A man's joy is in the fight. His Sharingan locked onto the ninjas ahead, and Saitama felt the weight of the situation. A Konoha kid, huh? The sand shinobi who'd blocked Saitama's earlier attack grinned, a cruel glint in his eyes. Swing, Saitama slashed out, meeting the enemy head-on. Clang. Clang, facing two opponents, Saitama was relentless, dictating the pace of the fight. Speed plus strength, the perfect combination gave Saitama the edge, allowing him to keep even the well-coordinated Chunin and Jonin on the defensive. Thwack, Saitama dodged a sword, but a kick caught him in the back, sending him flying. Ha! The ninja with the broadsword smiled, clearly pleased with their teamwork. Stick to the plan. Keep pressing him. The ninja who'd kicked Saitama hissed to his partner. Individually, neither of them could match Saitama. But together, they posed a serious threat. The swordsman nodded, stepping in front of Saitama to shield his partner. Interesting. Saitama noticed the uncanny resemblance between the two, sensing a level of teamwork that was beyond the norm. Chidori started to crackle around him, making his already spiky hair stand on end and giving him a menacing aura. ZZZZZ, with his eyes half closed, Saitama knew he had to take out the hidden ninja first before he got an opening. Whoosh, the blur of blue and white sent shivers down the spine of the swordsman. He could track Saitama's movements, but he couldn't react to them. Af. The sand shinobi roared to bolster his courage, swinging his blade wildly. Swish, Saitama slid to the ground, narrowly avoiding the descending sword, but in doing so, he placed himself directly beneath his enemy. Looking up, Saitama saw a pair of wide, surprised eyes. Schlink, he wasn't about to pass up this opportunity. Lightning flashed as his blade found its mark. The enemy tried to retreat the instant his attack failed, but Saitama was already one step ahead. The ninja blade sliced across his waist, and blood instantly gushed out. Watch out! The ninja in the rear yelled a warning as he charged forward. Boom, capitalizing on the blow, Saitama needed to press his advantage and eliminate the threat right now. He slammed his right foot into the sand, using the momentum to launch himself at the retreating enemy. Whoa, the enemy abruptly turned around, holding his broadsword across his chest, backpedaling desperately. Saitama's sword came again, lightning arcing off of the enemy's weapon. Baka. His left hand shot out, emitting a shrill cry as 1,000 birds descended. The momentum of his body gave incredible power to the blow. Ha! The swordsman thought he was safe after blocking Saitama's ninja blade. His partner was ready to follow through, and then a blinding, deafening hand rocketed into his chest. No! Even though he didn't recognize the ninjutsu, Sand Ninja knew it was lethal. He let out a strangled cry as his body began to fail. The ninja behind him widened his eyes in horror, as he watched a hand bursting from his brother's back, crackling with raw, electrical energy. Gak, blood trickled from the corner of the sand shinobi's mouth, and red liquid began to gush from the hole in his chest. With a single tug, Saitama pulled his sword free of the broadsword, and pressed himself tight against the dying enemy. The ninja's thin form barely cleared the swordsman's shoulder as blood spattered all over Saitama's body. Eyes half closed, Saitama remembered that he still had an enemy to deal with, and multiple opponents surrounding him. Shove, after pulling his hand back, Saitama sent the enemy tumbling backwards, evaporating the blood with lightning. Die! The moment the ninja hit the ground, a kunai flew toward Saitama, wielded by vicious eyes. Clang, anticipating the follow-up attack, Saitama swung his ninja sword in a flash. Boom, Saitama planted his foot on the corpse to keep the momentum, and then counterattacked. Hee hee. The knife sliced into the enemy again and again, cutting him to ribbons. In an instant, his clothes were stained red, anger clouded his judgment and washed away all the focus a ninja needed. His brother died right in front of his eyes, and all he could see was the blood. He threw himself against the superior swordsman. The ninja had lost his composure, had lost sight of his surroundings. His career was about to end. If you want to die, I'll send you off. Saitama stabbed his blade into the enemy's chest with a cold face. The blood on his body painted him as death himself. Hee hee, you'll die too. Sand Village will avenge me. The enemy grabbed Saitama tightly, kunai lying uselessly to the side. The thunder kept surging. Saitama, with his ample chakra, cranked up the voltage. With one last convulsion, the enemy's eyes rolled back and Saitama disinterestingly yanked his blade free. The battle continued to rage, with ninja corpses strewn everywhere. Some still gasped for air, struggling on the ground. Saitama. Lin's voice rang out from the side, and Saitama turned to face it. Page 69. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Uchiha Lin was facing off against 3 ninjas. Even with his 3-tomo Sharingan, he was outnumbered, especially since all 3 enemies were jonin. Suddenly, with a burst of speed, Saitama appeared at Lin's side, intercepting one of the ninjas. This instantly eased the pressure on Lin, allowing him to hold his own. Ha! The Sand Shinobi eyed this Konoha ninja who had suddenly intervened. Half of his body was covered in blood, yet he looked incredibly young. A mental alarm bell went off. This matched intel from the hidden sand, a Konoha ninja who'd infiltrated their territory, sniping supply teams, wielding lightning chakra nature transformation with deadly skill. And he was young enough to still be using a knife. The sand ninja narrowed his eyes, regaining his composure. If this kid was the one in the intel, he couldn't afford to underestimate him. Meanwhile, Uchiha Lin, freed from the 3-way assault, fought with renewed intensity, pushing the attack against his remaining opponents. Schwa, with a slash. Saitama's sharp eyes tracked the enemy's hand movements. Zap. Electricity surged along the blade's edge and struck the enemy. ZZZT. The current left a black scorch mark on the sand ninja, momentarily paralyzing him. You're asking for it. Chakra flared around the enemy's body, an instantaneous burst that broke free from Saitama's electric shock. He drove a knee straight into Saitama, who was caught off guard. Boom. Saitama staggered, having underestimated his foe. He hadn't expected a counterattack. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. Saitama wiped it away with the back of his left wrist, a shadow passing over his eyes. ZZZT, an electric aura crackled around him, drawing attention from the others. Saitama, astonishingly, sheathed his ninja sword and charged straight at the enemy, abandoning his weapon altogether. Boom, one punch. Saitama's speed reached a new level, connecting squarely with the enemy's cheek. The sand ninja's right cheek caved in, his eyes widening in shock and helplessness as teeth flew out. Dazed, Saitama drew his knife again, and in a flash of lightning, slashed at the enemy. Clang, a kunai blocked the attack. The enemy had recovered after Saitama's initial burst. His speed had been overwhelming, but now he could track Saitama's movements. Blue chakra crackled around the kunai, neutralizing the electricity from Saitama's blade, shielding himself from its effects. Saitama gasped for breath. The burst of speed had been fueled by increased chakra stimulation, pushing his body to its limits, but it was unsustainable. The cost was high. It wasn't just the chakra drain, the physical exertion left Saitama feeling drained. Fire style, balsamic flower jutsu. Uchiha Lin's powerful ninjutsu scattered the 2 ninjas he was facing. He quickly moved toward Saitama's opponent. Humph. A cold voice sounded behind him. Uchiha Lin ignored it. It was the other 2 sand ninjas realizing his intent. Schwa, Saitama, of course, saw Lin coming. A cold glint flashed in his eyes as he pressed the attack on the sand ninja, giving him no escape. Zzzt, as the electricity coursed through him, cold sweat dripped from the sand ninja's forehead. He was desperate to break free of Saitama's attack, but he could barely defend himself. Seeing Uchiha Lin approaching, his expression changed. He'd been struggling since the start of the battle, feeling overwhelmed. Now, Saitama's help not only eased the pressure but also gave him a chance to eliminate his opponent. Whoosh! Uchiha Lin tossed a kunai, blocking the sand ninja's retreat. With swift, precise steps, Saitama relentlessly slashed with his blade, slowly draining the enemy's life. Arg! The enemy cried out as Saitama's knife tore through his right arm, instantly crippling him. Fire style, fireball jutsu. Uchiha Lin, now beside Saitama, unleashed a fireball at the sand ninja who was giving chase, using the recoil to propel himself forward. Die! Sharingan spinning wildly, Saitama gave the enemy no time to breathe. Thwack, another slash, this time across the chest. The enemy's eyes turned bloodshot, panic flooding his face. The wounds brought the stench of death. Saitama kept on the attack, driving in close, throwing himself into the enemy's arms. The enemy's kunai grazed Saitama's face, narrowly missing his neck, and stuck into the space behind him. Tilting his head, Saitama clamped down on the enemy's hand. Electrical current surged through his body, flowing down his arm and into the enemy. This time, Saitama amplified the electrical output, dramatically increasing the damage. The enemy screamed. Saitama plunged his gleaming ninja blade into the enemy's abdomen. Take that! The voice was barely audible. The enemy's body convulsed, his eyes beginning to glaze over. The instant Saitama's blade pierced the enemy, Lin was there. A kunai sliced across the sand ninja's throat, ending his life. Nice work! Lin grinned. Saitama just shook his head. Seriously, was Lin trying to steal his kill? Chapter 30. I don't want to be a hero, heroes don't last. In the end, neither side could claim victory. Orochimaru and Raza each sustained wounds, forcing them to retreat. Konoha and the Hidden Sand abandoned the all-out battle, resuming their standoff. Perhaps Orochimaru hadn't yet reached his peak power at this time. In Saitama's memory, Raza was supposed to have been killed by Orochimaru. Had they truly fought to a draw during this period? So, have you made up your mind, Saitama? Lin asked, arms crossed. Yeah, I've applied for a transfer back to the village. This battlefield just isn't for me anymore, Saitama replied. Since that day's battle, he'd been considering leaving the front lines. What's the reason? Injury? Lin asked, surprised. It had been Saitama who'd insisted on coming to the front a few months ago, and now he wanted to go back out of the blue. Page 70. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Uchiha needs a reason not to want to fight. Saitama said, a funny look on his face, craning his neck to look up at Lin, who towered over him. Even though Saitama's only 7, he's already pushing 5 feet tall. He seems to be growing taller every day. Maybe it's from all the chakra he's using to boost his cells. Saitama doesn't sweat the changes. No matter how tall he gets, nobody's gonna call him shorty anymore. Heh, Lin chuckled at Saitama's words. Alright, Shisui started taking solo missions too. You can team up with him when you get back. Lin clapped Saitama on the shoulder. He had to admit, Saitama was a prodigy for his age. In a serious fight, Saitama would give him a run for his money. Not to mention, he had no idea what kind of crazy ninjutsu Saitama was cooking up. Go see Lord Orochimaru, he mentioned wanting to talk to you this morning. Lin gave Saitama a couple of pats, then turned and walked away without a second glance. Saitama stood there for a moment, lost in thought. What could Orochimaru want? His performance on the battlefield had earned him a reputation as a genius among the Konoha ninja who witnessed it, proving he was at least as strong as a jonin. Naturally, Orochimaru took notice after the war, leading to more interactions, though limited to the usual superior-subordinate stuff. I'll find out soon enough, no use worrying. With that thought, Saitama headed toward Orochimaru's tent, a standard issue green one. He passed several ninja on the way, nodding casually. They didn't seem to think he was being arrogant, considering he at least acknowledged them, right? As he stood outside the tent, wondering how to announce himself, Orochimaru's voice cut through the silence. Is that Saitama? Come in. The deep voice made Saitama stand up straight, even though Orochimaru's tone was flat and emotionless. Whoa, Saitama muttered as he pulled back the tent flap and stepped inside. It was dark, and the sudden change left Saitama blinking, his vision temporarily gone. Squinting, he made out a figure sitting cross-legged facing the entrance. Lord Orochimaru, Saitama said, bowing slightly as he approached and stopped a few feet away. Orochimaru watched him with an amused expression, the corners of his mouth curving into a slight smile. Saitama took in Orochimaru's pale skin and strangely alluring eyes, but said nothing. Still so reserved, Saitama. Orochimaru watched him stop several feet away and licked his lips. He was very interested in this rising Uchiha star, a kid with incredible strength and potential. Did you want to see me about something, Lord Orochimaru? At Orochimaru's gesture, Saitama sat down cross-legged on a mat to his right. Can't I just want to chat, Saitama? Orochimaru's eyes were intense, boring into Saitama's. Of course, Saitama replied, meeting his gaze without flinching, as if he saw a reflection of himself in Orochimaru's eyes. You're a fascinating kid, Saitama. You were one of the Uchiha who first caught my attention, and now I think you're the most interesting of them all. Orochimaru's voice was husky as he smiled, toying with the purple ornament dangling from his ear. I'm flattered, Lord Orochimaru. Saitama didn't feel intimidated. He didn't detect any strange desires in Orochimaru's eyes, just a sort of appreciation. At least, that's what he thought. Have you ever thought about becoming one of my subordinates? You're just about the right age to be my apprentice, Orochimaru asked, making no attempt to hide his intentions. He'd told Saitama after their first meeting that if he survived the battlefield, he wouldn't mind taking him under his wing. Would that be possible? Saitama asked, looking straight into Orochimaru's eyes. As a student of the third Hokage, would he really take a Uchiha as a student? Wouldn't that be like inviting someone from the Hokage family in? Why wouldn't it be? Orochimaru countered, his expression unchanged. My lord, don't forget I'm an Uchiha, Saitama reminded him, his face calm beyond his years. Saitama, don't forget that I'm one of the legendary Sannin, Orochimaru said with a touch of amusement. He didn't see why being a member of the Uchiha clan should matter. The relationship between the clan and the Hokage family wasn't exactly warm, but who cared? He was Orochimaru. I'm honored, but I don't think I'd have much time to learn from you, Lord Orochimaru. Saitama replied regretfully. He hadn't expected Orochimaru to extend an offer like this, but it didn't change his plans. Orochimaru seemed to be starting his human experiments around now. The third would probably find out after the war and he'd leave the village around Konoha 46 or 47, so, in a year or two, Orochimaru would be gone. Well, I heard you requested a transfer from the front lines. If you change your mind, you can come to me anytime. I'll help you however I can. Orochimaru smiled, his pale cheeks, golden snake eyes, and the eyeshadow that extended to the sides of his nose giving him a coquettish look. Thank you, my lord. Orochimaru's raspy voice echoed in Saitama's mind as he nodded, got to his feet, and left. Orochimaru seemed to have expected it. As Saitama turned, he felt like Orochimaru could see right through him. Those eyes were unforgettable. He's a fascinating child. Orochimaru licked his lips, imagining Saitama's future. What would such an Uchiha become? Closing his eyes, Orochimaru decided not to force the issue. Maybe now wasn't the right time. A flash of light illuminated the tent as Saitama pulled back the flap and disappeared, leaving Orochimaru to sit quietly in the darkness. Phew. Stepping outside and breathing in the fresh air, Saitama felt relieved. Orochimaru hadn't put much pressure on him. What had made him uneasy was the invisible weight of his own thoughts. Time to go. Scanning the camp, Saitama decided it was time to head back to the village and start preparing for what was coming. Konoha 4-5 was just around the corner. You really want to go back, Saitama? Sagi asked, tapping his ear with his fingers, feigning indifference. Hey! Saitama, show some respect. Sagi gritted his teeth, his voice laced with bitterness. He'd only found out about Saitama's departure at the last minute, which he found odd. He couldn't believe that someone as fearless as Saitama would choose to retreat from the front lines now. Well, I'm leaving soon anyway. Got anything else to say? Saitama knew Sagi had a stubborn personality. Only those who knew him well realized how talkative he was, so he figured he'd just let Sagi run out of steam.